Good evening. Tonight we would like to speak to you some more about tools for peace. And the topic that we have chosen for tonight is a journey from the head to the heart, a journey of compassion. As usual, we don't quite know where this is going to go, but we hope to be very spontaneous with you tonight and give you something from our hearts. This is my dear wife, Susannii, and I'm Brian. And so, do you have anything you want to say right off the bat?
No, I don't.
Okay. I guess I'll just jump right in there. So, when we're talking about peace, inner peace, with all that goes with that, which is joy, one of the very vital things that we need to look at is, where are our hearts? Where are we living? Are we living in our heads? Or are we living in our hearts? Because if we're living in our hearts, then some things like compassion for other people will naturally flow, because it is the nature of the human heart to be compassionate. And if we're living in our heads, which we all do to one degree or another, and we're separating ourselves from that, we're living in a kind of made-up reality. That's the nature of living in our heads. And it's something that all of us as human beings have been taught to do since we were kids. All of our schooling and everything we've learned from society has been about learning how to act in an appropriate kind of way, learning how to act according to certain conditions that society has determined are acceptable. And one of the things that comes from that experience is that we get to be ever more functioning in our heads and not in our hearts. And it becomes somewhat socially unacceptable to live fully in your heart. And people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of losing. They're afraid of experiencing deeper levels of their hearts, deeper levels of love, because they're just, because of the fear of loss.
Also, it's pretty uncomfortable to be feeling so vulnerable. It's incredibly difficult to live in your heart, because the kind of vulnerability you feel, you feel as though you have no protection against someone breaking your heart, and your heart is to be protected. And so I think it's easier for women to live in our hearts because of, we raise the children, we have the children, we raise them, we teach the children. It's just easier. I think we're born that way. Most women, I don't know, some women might disagree with me, but it just feels like we are born to nurture, and our hearts are always forefront. For me, it's been easy because it's been easy to be compassionate because I'm more of an empath, and I can feel how people are feeling, and I can feel that way myself, and know that I need to take action. The world is run by people thinking and facts and figures, and that's how this world, unfortunately, is run, in my opinion. I feel like the world needs women right now with the compassion, with the love, with the wisdom. And we're in a rough time right now. That's why I want to do these videos. This is a time of transformation in the world. And pandemic is still raging out there. And it's getting better, but it isn't over yet. And we feel like we want to add our voices to. It's an act of compassion, actually, just doing these videos, because we want to add our voices of love to all the voices that are out there on YouTube and in other places. And I feel extremely vulnerable putting it out there, but I feel like it's a different time, and we all need to speak up and whatever we've learned, we need to share with one another, and we need to connect with one another in a world of compassion.
Yeah, it's the big missing ingredient right now around the world. When you look at all the struggle and strife that's going on, the one big missing is true compassion for other human beings. And it is absolutely a tool for peace when you can be in that place. So the question gets to be, how do we get there? How do we be more compassionate? How do we be more heart-centered rather than mind-centered? And it's a journey that begins with our choice and our attention and our will. We have to want to be there, first of all. And maybe one of the motivations for wanting to be there is because not being there is too painful. A lot of people living in pain out there. And one sure way out of that is to learn compassion for others and service to others. Those are the things that start to wake up the heart. The nature of the human heart is a nature of compassion. It's there in all people. It's there clearly in younger people, children who by nature are compassionate until they're taught otherwise, often on a playground by their peers, where bullying begins and all that. And the more we grow up, because that loving, compassionate nature that we have within us gets overshadowed by negative experiences, by fear, suddenly we start locking it down. And that's when the movement goes from the heart to the head.
Also, if we practice service as part of our being, so I've often heard that service is love in action. And I truly believe that it is, that we make a choice every day to get up. And I don't think service is a big thing where you have to go out into the soup kitchen every week or every day. That's a good thing, and I think that we should do things like that. But I think service can be like smile at the homeless guy and maybe give him a few bucks. If you smile at anyone, actually, it gives them a feeling of connection and that you care. If we run around in our life and just ignore everybody, we end up in our little cubicle like I did in LA, our house. But it was a cubicle because I never knew my neighbors. But I will just say that the only response, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, the only response to everyone is compassion. Try to see where they're coming from. Try to put yourself in their shoes. And if you can do that, then it's not all about you anymore, like the ego would like to tell you that it's all about you all the time. And you just shift your consciousness, you shift your being when you make that choice to be compassionate, to be kind. And in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. That's another one I just read recently. I don't know who to attribute it to, but I thought it was so sweet and so true. We can choose it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, we can. And that is, in itself, a major tool for one's inner peace, making that choice, deciding to shift our attention. That's one thing that we all have a choice in as human beings. We can shift our attention toward the positive level of emotions and the negative level of emotions. We all know what both of them are, and we all know where they lead. And sometimes just that choice to shift, to see the brighter, to see the light, to see, and things like service help us to do that. One of the problems that human beings get into is they trade compassion for judgment. Judgment is a big It's a biggie with people. And we're all guilty of it to one degree or another. And the problem with judgment is that it takes us out of our hearts and gets us stuck into a place of illusion, because there really is no such thing as a true judgment. It may sound like a shocking statement. It was shocking when I first heard it, but the more I had to think about that and chew on that, there really is no such thing as true judgment. We think that we're right about a particular political candidate or our neighbor or our parent or whoever, our child, whoever. We find ourselves judging the guy in the car ahead of us, right, who's moving too slow, but not knowing what's up with him, what's going on for him, what he's trying to be aware of, or the fact that there's a child in the back seat who's crying. All of these things just keep coming up, and we miss them. And in our judgment, what we try and do is we make our own little world safe in that moment. We decide, okay, well, this is how things are, and this is how they are, and this is how he is or she is. And it's always wrong. And anytime we get into judgment, it takes us right out of compassion. Look at your own experience and see if that works or not. So,
I was just going to say that judgment is another manufactured reaction of our ego to keep us from feeling vulnerable. You can't walk around with your heart open all the time, but if you decide to frame something in a judgment or someone in a judgment, then surprise, you're out of your heart and you don't have to be vulnerable. So it's kind of sneaky how the ego does that with us, and not just about others, but with ourselves. Like if we're really harsh with ourselves, we're going to be harsh with other people. If we're in judgment of ourselves, well, I look terrible today, or my hair looks terrible, or whatever, and or I don't feel good today, and so all of a sudden we're in these judgments all day long in our mind, and we start treating people like that. However we treat ourselves is how we're going to treat other people. So I'm a big proponent of self-care. I love to go get massages and pedicures. Just ask my kids, and I think that it's a priority for everyone to take care of themselves, to do self-care, to do these things to show ourselves that we love ourselves no matter what, and it's a service to ourselves too, right? So that we don't get too run down, too tired, to be able to show love and compassion to others. To have a few minutes to bake some bread for the widow next door. If we have been taking care of ourselves and been very aware of how we're responding, then we won't react. We won't react with judgment. We won't react with anger. If we treat ourselves in a non-judgmental way, then we would treat others in a non-judgmental way. You're so articulate. I wish I was like you.
Compassion begins with ourselves, no question about it. And that opens up a lot of stuff to talk about.
We can talk some more about compassion and service on other videos, but I just think this discussion is one that is added out into the world. I'm going to say anything else, but Mother Teresa said that if you're always judging people, then you have no time to love them. So we need to remember that. And I think where it starts is here within our own hearts, to have compassion for ourselves.
And remembering that the point of these videos is giving out tools for peace. And this is a vital one that we're getting into tonight. If you really want to feel more inner peace, inner joy, inner ease all the time, inner stability, you really have to make this journey, a conscious day-by-day journey from the judgmental mind to the non-judgmental compassionate heart. And it's been a subject of thought and advice for thousands of years, and it'll always be that way. In the future videos, we're going to talk about specific techniques, you might say, specific processes to enliven that heart more, enliven that awareness more, so that our awareness is ours to shift from the negative to the positive. And one of those that's going to be coming up very soon is self-inquiry, something I'm very big on. So with that, do we have anything else to wrap up?
No, I just wish I was, this is my self-judgment, I just wish I was more articulate and could remember things as well as you do. And I have stories about compassion, so maybe on one of our next videos we'll talk about compassion and some of the situations we found ourselves in over the years. I've been a hospice nurse and have some stories about compassion. And
you know what? I got a great finish up here.
Okay.
You remember the story that you were telling me about?
Yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
Why don't you just tell that real briefly? It's a great wrap up.
Okay, this is the great wrap up. Okay, so in one of my hospice patients, I was always going in and out of the homes, making sure people were comfortable and they weren't in pain. One of my patients, was at home with her daughter. Her daughter had a feeling that her mother needed something, and so she went to the nursing home, got her mother out of there, brought her home, and her mother started dying. And she knew her mother was going to die. She didn't know when. She had kept her at her home for days and days and days, and she had the doctor come in, and of course the hospice workers, who I think are angels in this world. So we all went in, and everybody had done their thing, the chaplain, the nurses, and her daughter caught me when I was going out the door, and she said, "Will you have a talk with my mother?" And I said, "Okay, sure." And she said, Mom tells me she's not going to die. She doesn't feel like she's worthy to go to heaven." And she had spoken with her pastor, and she had spoken with people that were in the business of talking to her about, unburdening herself. And so I went in and held her hand and sat with her for a while. Apparently she liked me a lot, and so I had a nice rapport with her. And she told me that she could never die right now, and she didn't know what she was going to do because she was just in limbo. She was in between two worlds, and she said, I can't die because when I meet God, I have too many burdens on my soul, and He'll never accept me into heaven. And I could really, she was very fearful. I could really feel it as I was holding her hand, that she was just so scared. So one of the blessings that I've been given, I've mentioned it before in other videos, and I will one day make a video about it. It's kind of a sacred thing to me, is my near-death experience. And I recalled the only thing that matters is love. And so I looked her in the eye and told her that all that matters is love. All of the things you think that matter right now don't matter at all. You need to let go and let God fill your soul. You know that you love God, and that's all you need. And I told her I knew this because I've been there. And I told her a little bit about my near-death experience and where I went and what I did and how it felt, and what was important and what isn't. And she would just squeeze my hand and cried, and I gave her a big hug, told her everything was going to be okay. And so I went out, and then she came, she lingered for 2 or 3 more days and had a peaceful death, passed away. So it was my compassion, it was my opportunity to serve her. And I think we'll go into a discussion about the fear of death. And it's the fear of the unknown. You're never more vulnerable than when you're dying. You don't know what's going to happen. And she was a God-fearing woman. She had lived a good life. So I believe that I was really blessed by doing this kind of service. And every day I never knew if I was going to be called to sit with someone while they were dying. There was always a wall of fear. There was always vulnerability there. And a lot of times there was anger. But I just felt impressed to touch her heart, to reach out and let her know that it's okay, you can go. And she did. I think we have a lot more power over where we go and what we do in this world and how we choose than people understand or will ever really understand. We're extremely powerful spirits having this human experience. And so with that, I will say we'll see you on our next video. And we are glad that you took this time to share with us. Thanks.
Evening.